Are you a church of God or are you a church of queer? Alright everyone, I've actually got a story a bit closer to home this time and I wanted to talk about it. My fella, Doozer McDooze, and a band called Whom by Fire booked a gig at St Mark's Church for the 4th of November. This gig has been cancelled. The good news is that a new venue has been secured and the gig will go on. It's going to happen at St Andrew's Church in Westcliff-on-Sea and it is going to be a fantastic night. Bring your own beverages and enjoy a lovely evening because the music is absolutely incredible, and I'm not just saying that because I'm biased. The musicians involved have released a joint statement and I'd like to read that all to you now. We are sorry to announce that St Mark's Church have cancelled our gig on November 4th. The church received complaints from Southend Pride accusing members of Whom by Fire of supporting anti-trans rhetoric. St Mark's state that they were concerned after viewing an interview Whom by Fire took part in, that it seemed that the same anti-queer stories were still being supported. The interview was highlighting issues surrounding a book reading at a Pride-promoted event, the author of whom described paedophilia as ripe for redemption. St Mark's state that they are an inclusive church and are determined to fight against discrimination. However, they have declined to offer specific examples of what these anti-queer stories are and have yet to give an example of anti-trans rhetoric. We, Whom by Fire, Doozer McDooze, Gabriel Moreno and Winter are all confused by this statement. St Mark's have excluded us and cancelled a night of incredible music by creative artists with a wonderful audience. On a more positive note, we are happy to announce and thank St Andrew's Church in Westcliff for hosting our event, which will be held on November 4th. All previously bought tickets will be valid and everyone is welcome. St Andrew's is a beautiful church with amazing acoustic. The show goes on, praise the Lord. I love that the musicians on the bill have banded together, no pun intended, to show that they're going to stand by one another. They will stand up for each other's right to express themselves. Otherwise, what is art if you are not allowed to freely express yourself? I actually think that it would be really good for people to see how these cancellations happen behind closed doors. The Reverend of the church got in touch with one of the band members from Whom by Fire, and this was what was sent. Hi, I'm sorry to message you about a problem that has cropped up. I'm sure you know that St Mark's and my ministry there has really flourished and developed around the queer community over the last 3 years. I'd like to wonder why a church is flourishing around a queer community and not the community at large. Hold that thought. Making St Mark's a place where people who have often experienced unkindness and vile behaviour from society, and I am so sad to say, from the church and from people who claim to be followers of Jesus, feel at last able to be accepted as who they are. It's interesting how this church doesn't seem to care about the unkindness and vile behaviour that the musicians are facing. It's really interesting because they're saying they want to accept people as they are. Well, why won't you accept us as we are? Unfortunately, we have been contacted with some information from members of the LGBTQIA+ community that your band has been said to have expressed different views on the subject. Interesting, isn't it? It's interesting that they've complained that one of the bands has a member that has different views. Okay, what's that got to do with anything? Take note of the fact that there is no specific accusation. The sin is invisible. I wanted to ask you for your thoughts on this, as I had no idea that this has happened, and I am not sure what I should do about it at the moment. If you're considering cancelling the gig because somebody said to you that somebody in a band has a different view on something, that's on you. You make the decision, but you take the consequences of that as well, because it's not right. There have already been cases that have been won, such as Maya Forstater case and Joanna Cherry's case, which I will link in the description below. Maya Forstater won the right to not lose your employment over not believing in gender identity ideology, and if that is what this is about, then you're crossing a line. Eliza wrote back, "Hi Rev, thanks for reaching reaching out about all of this. Of course, this is very concerning. We would like to be clear in what your concerns actually are, and it would be good to know exactly what has happened, please. Has a complaint been made? If so, who made it? And what did the complaint say? If a copy of this complaint can be provided, we will be in a much fairer position to provide feedback. What you should do if you're ever faced with a situation like this, where you're given a vague insinuation that you have committed a sin, potentially offended a member of the Rainbow Mafia, you should ask for specifics on what you're being accused of. It's weird and it's not lawful. There are no laws in the UK that say you have to agree with the LGBTQIA plus community on everything, otherwise your employment will be compromised. So the Reverend wrote back, we have been contacted by Southend Pride in the first instance due to some transphobic comments made by Dan. I believe, although they have not named him, but I had a quick look on his Facebook so I can see he has some very strong views. Hold up, Reverend. So Southend Pride, a charity, contacted you and said somebody in one of the bands has transphobic views. They didn't specify who. I've got a few questions already. Why is Southend Pride getting involved in this? This gig is not a Southend Pride funded event. It's not sponsored by Southend Pride. It's not supported by Southend Pride. It's not hosted by Southend Pride. It has nothing to do with Southend Pride. Why not just ask Southend Pride directly? What is the accusation you're making and who are you accusing, and is it a crime? Because if it's not a crime, then I don't understand why you're bringing this issue to me. I digress. I have been sent a link to an interview you both did in response to being pulled from the Leeds Folk Festival during the summer, and that was also a bit disappointing because it seemed that the same anti-queer stories were still being supported. Whom by Fire got pulled from Leeds Folk Festival earlier this year because Dan criticised a Southend Pride event, a book reading for a book called Towards a Gay Communism. You know, you can guess what gay communism is. Meili is a queer theorist and author of Towards a Gay Communism. This is the book that was criticised by the member of Whom by Fire, Dan. He criticised the book as not really being suitable for teenagers or for family events. Meili is regarded as being up there with Foucault, and we all know that Foucault is a very controversial figure. So I've not read Meili's book. I have read about his book and read some reviews of it. I've also downloaded a copy of the book to read. What in homosexuality particularly horrifies homo normalists, the policemen of the hetero-capitalist system, is being fucked in the arse. And this can only mean that one of the most delicious bodily pleasures, anal intercourse, is itself a significant revolutionary force. The thing that we queens are so greatly put down for contains a large part of our subversive gay potential. I keep my treasure in my arse, but then my arse is open to everyone. In this almost Bataille-like communication of material form, human corporality enters into egalitarian relations with all worldly beings, including children and new arrivals of every kind, dead bodies, animals, plants, things, flowers, turds. Again, the sentence ends with ellipses, this time to indicate that the list could continue. And again, the beautiful flowers is juxtaposed with the ugly turd, anticipating the transvaluation that crystallises in Meili's announcement. I keep treasure in my arse. And that is a direct quote. Meili's vision aims to restore to adult life the polymorphous potential for love that characterises childhood, before categories of identity assume their disciplinary weight. In the polymorphous pleasures of gay sex, particularly in its desublimation of anal play, Meili glimpsed at the possibility that we could all return to a prelapsarian state of erotic grace, forging a utopia in which not only our arses, but our most intimate beings would be open to otherness. His commitment to this vision anticipates recent queer utopianism, with the difference that he does not shy away from sex. Meili's conviction about the potential of eros goes further than most queer critique, since he includes paedophilia, necrophilia, and coprophagy in his catalogue of experiences ripe for redemption. That is one of the most pretentious things I have ever read. You know, I hate it when people use these long words to say nothing. It's a waste of my breath, and I've got asthma, so I have to be careful with my breath. Personally, I think Dan's criticisms of this event are justified. It's weird to me that the Reverend would describe seeing the interview where Dan criticises this book and the book reading as disappointing. Is it anti-queer to criticise Meili's book where you have sex with poo. Is that anti-queer? Is that anti-trans? Let's carry on. I know GB News love that stuff, so I am trying not to take it too seriously. Maybe even think about what the word queer means. Queer is a slur that was used when people were beating up gays in the 90s. Who's using the word queer? Straight people who want to be special. That's who's using the word queer. I personally don't think there's any straight people who call themselves queer that have been oppressed in any sort of way whatsoever. I'm trying not to take it too seriously, but my permission as part of the inclusive community of churches makes it hard unless I know you do not actually support these stories. So what Reverend is saying here is, if you can just tell me that you didn't mean it and that you love the queer community, then we're all good. You can go ahead with your gig that's already been booked. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, not ha-ha funny. It's just mental. Mental when you read it out loud like this, isn't it? Eliza from Whom by Fire wrote back, Dan is more than happy to talk to you about anything you want to raise with him, so feel free to get in touch with him. I am happy to address the whole interview thing. No interviews we did had us supporting any anti-queer stories, so would like to know what anti-queer stories you are referring to, please. Look out for this in your own life if you are encountering anything like this. Usually what happens is, not only is somebody being accused of some invisible sin that's very vague and more of an insinuation than an accusation, but that person isn't spoken to directly. It's addressed with people around that person. Another lady at the church sent a couple of links. There's a YouTube video to Dan's interview with GB News, which I'll put a clip in now.
Was it one of you who wrote the post?
Well, they didn't say which band member it was, but we kind of thought it's probably me.
It is, you know, was there a particular incident of it that you'd seen in...
Our local Southend Pride had been promoting a book reading event by an author called Meili.
Yep.
I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation. And he was an author who reportedly advocated for paedophilia. And so obviously that's a bit...
Like, really directly, or you're reading between the lines, the paedophilia? Because a few people actually come out and, like, really, you know, strongly in favour of that.
Well, it's quite easy to, like, research into it, but according to a brief biog that I read, I think he sort of said paedophilia, necrophilia and several other things were ripe for redemption.
OK,
so, sounds like he liked it.
How did you feel about that, Eliza?
Oh, I didn't know about it until we were told we were cancelled, and I was like, oh, what's Dan written now?
And there's a link to an Evening Echo article from when Whom by Fire got cancelled from Lean Folk Festival. Now, if the Reverend had bothered to read that Evening Echo article, she would have seen that Whom by Fire had so much support from the community, the actual wider community of Southend. Everybody was against the cancellation. Everybody said it was wrong, it was out of order. The public in general was so against it. They're so turned off by cancel culture. They're so sick of it. They're bored of it. They might not know the details. I don't think they care. They're just sick of it. If you're going to have a music event, have a music event. Have a nice time. Let the musicians have their gig. Let the audience have their night out. For goodness sake, stop all this thought policing. It's boring. The Reverend would know that if the church were bothering to listen to the entire community and not just the queer community. Then something interesting happened. Perhaps it would be best for us all to meet with Southend Pride for them to discuss the issues as they see them. What has this got to do with Southend Pride? Why is this Reverend asking you to go and meet up with this charity and beg them for permission to play the gig that you've already had booked and agreed upon? They've already signed the contract. They've already agreed on this gig. It's booked. The posters went out. The tickets have been sold. And now you want the band to go and meet up with this charity that has nothing to do with the gig to beg them for permission to do the gig. Bearing in mind, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Whom by Fire actually did a gig at St Mark's Church previously and sold it out. So it's not like they haven't worked with this church before and they don't already have a relationship that they've established that's friendly and cordial. At this point, the musicians just want to know if the gig's going ahead. And the Reverend is saying, well, you've got to meet up with Southend Pride and resolve it with them. Who is Southend Pride? I looked them up. They're a charity. They do events like family queer picnics. I don't know what that means. International Women's Day where men get up and talk about how hard it is to pretend to be a woman. And International Non-Binary Day, because, you know, everybody wants to be non-binary nowadays because being narcissistic is really fashionable. Interesting. You don't have to pretend that men can become women and that paedophilia is ripe for redemption. You don't have to go along with that. You don't have to agree with that. You're allowed to have an opinion. You're allowed to use your own mind and your own eyes and form your own opinion and say, no, I don't agree with that. And that should be okay. A charity like Southend Pride, they don't own Southend. They're a charity. This is not what charities are supposed to be doing. They're not supposed to be sticking their nose in at local musicians' gig and trying to get them cancelled. I personally am going to be making a complaint to the Charity Commission about Southend Pride. Eliza wrote back, I am at a loss as to where in those links you have sent we were supporting anti-queer stories. And this is the interesting bit. Listen to this. The Reverend wrote back, I am mostly concerned about the Pride community's reaction. So if we can meet together, that would help the situation. Do you know what that means? The Reverend of the church is worried about the reaction of the Pride community. The church are scared of Southend Pride. It's, in my opinion, it comes off like they're being bullied and strong-armed and they just don't want the hassle. I think this Reverend and St. Mark's Church, they need to make their mind up. Are you a Church of God or are you a Church of Queer? So I spoke to the band about this and I said, don't do it. You have no responsibility whatsoever to talk to people and resolve it with people who are attacking you. I got added into the group and straight away this is what I said. Hi, what's all of this got to do with Southend Pride? So another lady at the church posted the initial message. I've already seen it, so I didn't care about that. I wrote back, right, someone at Southend Pride doesn't like Dan or his opinions and has misrepresented them, it seems. Can you not find a specific allegation from them? And if you're not willing to do that, then why are you using their vague accusations or complaints to dictate what you do? Is Southend Pride in charge here? How can you defend yourself if you don't know what the accusation is? Is Southend Pride in charge of this church? We were never informed of that before. None of these questions were answered. The church did send us a copy and paste of the complaint. This is the concern that has been raised. Hi folks. Anyone who lives in Essex who says hi folks needs to get out. I've had enough. I'm contacting you in regard to some concerns that have been raised by some of our trans siblings about using St. Mark's following learning the venue is hosting Home by Fire. Ooh. Sorry, that's so immature of me. Home by Fire have been linked with some very anti-trans rhetoric, and you may not be aware they were pulled from the Leigh Folk Festival as a result of standing in solidarity with our trans community. I'm just wondering if you were aware and were hoping to develop a response from St. Mark to the inquiries we are receiving. What a bunch of little snitches! You know, in school, when you got like that kid in the class that just tells on everyone for everything, that's what this reads like, except, you know, nobody's actually done anything wrong. Miss, Daniel has an opinion, and it's not the same one as mine. Please do something about it. Bunch of crybaby telltale tits. Nobody liked these kids in school, and for some reason, we're now all grown up and we're rewarding these people in our society. What is that about? But here we go, look, this is another thing they do. They make it out like there's been complaint. This happens all the time, and I can guarantee you, actually, I would bet at least £2 that nobody complained about Home by Fire playing a gig locally. Not one person. This is somebody with a bee in their bonnet at Southend Pride, in my opinion, pretending that there has been complaints to put pressure on the church and make the church worried that trans people don't like it. Home by Fire have been linked with very anti-trans rhetoric. What is that? What is that? Everything's anti-trans these days. The word mother is anti-trans. The word breastfeeding is anti-trans. The word menstruating is anti-trans. What does it mean? And this, I'm just wondering if you were aware of the situation. Grow up. So I wrote back, these are very vague insinuations that have been made here. Did Southend Pride provide you with evidence? And if not, did you ask for any? And if you didn't ask for evidence, why are you repeating the vague insinuations as if it's a fact? And then asking anyone here to defend themselves without actually knowing exactly what they're apparently being accused of. I also wrote, can you please also clarify what these anti-queer stories were? Because again, I still don't know what the anti-queer story is. Is it that Dan criticised Meili's book? So Dan chimed in as well. What are the queer stories? Our GB News interview was concerning the promotion of paedophilia. Is that considered a queer issue? It wasn't concerning the trans community. Incidentally, our last gig was co-hosted with a friend of ours who happens to be trans. That's true. I find the notion that I am transphobic pretty laughable. And there you go, you got to laugh at some of this, ain't you? Because it's ridiculous. Like I said, everything's transphobic nowadays, even breathing. How dare you breathe like a woman without permission? The Reverend wrote back, Dear all, I feel that this present conversation is just going back and forth, and while I want to be fair, I've seen some stuff that concerns me. I am in between a rock and a hard place. I'd hoped we could sit down and discuss this all together, and maybe the concerns Southend Pride have raised would be resolved by you guys. Why have we got to sit down with Southend Pride? This gig's already been booked. The tickets have already been sold. Why is this even happening? The only reason this conversation is going back and forth is because nobody is answering our questions. We still don't know what the band is being accused of. So what is there to resolve? And this is what I mean. They're trying to get you in a position where you willingly, because they can't force you, well, not physically anyway, you will be compelled to admit guilt, apologise, and agree to the doctrine. Don't do it. My best option is to refer further up to the hierarchy of the diocese, I think that's the word, to see what they advise me, and we'll get back to you. So there is the spinelessness of the people involved in this situation, and it's always the case. We're living in an epidemic of cowardice where people are too spineless to stick up for themselves, so they'll take it to the boss because they don't know what to do now. They don't know. They've got the bullies on one hand screaming at them and the victims on the other hand, and they're trying to get the victim to calm the bully down. That's just how I see it. The next day there were still no answers to any of our questions, and to be fair, the band did offer to meet face to face with Southend Pride. I personally don't think they should do it, but they did offer because, you know, we don't want to be the same as the TRAs and the Stonewall lot who are always shouting no debate, even though I personally don't think there is a debate to be had here. Somebody has a different view to you, so what? What's that got to do with the gig? What's that got to do with a night of music? Nothing. Absolutely got nothing to do with it. So the next day, in the evening, the father, so higher up at the church, got in touch and said, with regret, I am afraid that I have to bring you to the difficult news that I have decided we will have to cancel the gig night for your band and supporting act on Saturday 4th of November at St Mark's Church. I love how the father's making it out he hasn't got a choice. Of course he's got a choice. He's decided that it's easier to kick us out than to go against Southend Pride. I have not taken this decision lightly, and I have given due consideration to the many conflicting issues involved. Well, we don't know what the conflicting issues are because we still haven't been told exactly what anyone's being accused of. However, as you will know, we are an inclusive church parish. Yeah, so inclusive that you're going to exclude us for some vague reason about having different opinions. All right, mate. And our church council has given a clear lead on this and has been determined to fight against discrimination against people based on a range of issues, including gender and gender identity. So that's why you're going to discriminate against us. You're going to discriminate against these musicians to tackle discrimination. You couldn't make it up, could you? Yes, we're against discrimination, so we're going to discriminate you. This ethos is an important part of what we are as a parish and our witness to the gospel. What, queer theory? Queer theory is an important part of the gospel. I think you need to have a look at what queer theory really is, mate. It ain't what you seem to think it is. Our witness to the gospel in our city, and having been shown some of the views expressed by band members on social media, I'm afraid that these do not match with our ethos. So knowing what a woman is against the ethos of the church. Criticising the promotion of paedophilia is against the ethos of the church. Are you sure you want to say that? Have you thought that through? It's not a good look. Going ahead with the gig would bring conflict and upset in our congregation and in the community that we serve. Again, You serve Southend community. There's a lot of people in Southend community that actually have a diverse range of views. So Mother is keen that we do not close down conversations with you about these issues. We already have, mate, because you won't tell us what exactly the accusation is, and you haven't answered anybody's questions. So you have closed the conversation down, and now you've cancelled the gig. Illegally, by the way. But for the moment, we will have to withdraw our invitation to perform at St Mark's, and I am sorry for the disappointment this will cause for you and your fans. No, you're not. No, you're just scared of the Rainbow Mafia. You need to grow a backbone, you need to pray to God to help you get a spine, and you need to man up. That's my opinion. The good news is the band did get another gig straight away, so I hope you've learned something. Got to stand up for yourself, stand up for each other. I love that the musicians have all stood by each other on this, regardless of opinions, because that's what true diversity and inclusion really is. There is no reason to put up with this. Don't allow these people to dictate your life. They have no control over you. It is okay to not agree with queer theory. I just wanted to add as well that Eliza from Whom By Fire did write a really heartfelt status, and I thought I'd share it. Once more, I have been told I cannot perform music with my bandmate. The band is and always will be such a massive part of me. I love singing, being brought up singing in church. There's always been an undeniable spiritual depth to how I feel when I perform. A passion that is very hard to equate to anything else in my life. To have someone who doesn't know me but have such hate in their heart that they would rather attack my music is disgusting and goes against everything I believe and everything that scares me about social media and society as a whole. These vindictive people have tarnished me with the same brush as Dan, branding Whom By Fire as bigots and anti-queer. There is no room for dialogue, conversation. There is no room for love here, just hate. They have no idea who I am, what I believe, what I think, nothing about my past, my anxieties, my strength, my inspiration and desires. They have no idea there is fire in my belly, something that has been ignited which will not be put out by bullies. I was scared before, but no more. This is something I will defend and stick by, sink my teeth into and not let go of until these faceless few are made accountable. See you at our new venue, St Andrews. This is the church I grew up going to, where I was married, where I rehearse weekly with the Southend Back Choir. A wonderful church with a great community who have welcomed us with open arms. Thank you.
Heard you sing freedom and it moved me like chains that cannot bind you, like flames that can't consume you. I'm most sure you would storm the cage that is your house, burn it to the ground with love divine. Surely will lead you to the ground. Chains that cannot bind you, like flames that can't consume you. I most surely will storm the cage that is your house, burn it to the ground with love divine. Surely will lead you to the ground.
internet is a very strange place where people hide their name and face. It's breeding very brave cowards, where you can message anyone you like, go and be mean and start a fight. It makes you feel empowered, and it's okay to give someone a second chance, but on the third time, give them the fuck you dance. You ready? Put your hands in the air, nice, and give a little wiggle. Put your meat face up and flick those fingers on the middle. Lovely. Everybody seems so keen to hide away behind the screen and socialise in a virtual world. It makes you feel invincible, 'cause you can say anything at all, and someone will tell you that you're right. And it's okay to give someone a second chance, but on the third time, give them the fuck you dance. You ready? Put your hands in the air and give a little wiggle. Put your mean face up and flick those fingers from the middle. Would you say that in real life? Do you wanna start a fight? Can't we just get along? And what's it got to do with you? How people live their life and choose what to do. Okay to give someone a second chance, but on the third time, give them the fuck you done. Ready, one more time, ready? Put your hands in the air and give a little wiggle. Put your mean face on and bring those fingers on the middle. One more time, one more time. Put your hands in the air and give a little wiggle. Your main face on, and flick those fingers from the middle and say fuck you. Thank you very much. I'm Doozer McDooze. I'll see you all very soon. Bye.